We're going to talk about making good impressions today. Making good impressions are important in business, they're important for getting a job, they're important for developing relationships, personal or professional. So what is it that helps us make a good impression? That's what we're going to be talking about today. One thing is you might have different ideas of what is desirable. So first thing is, what makes a good impression to one person is not a good impression to somebody else. Okay, so you have to know your audience. Where are you going that you're trying to make this good impression? I had a friend who, his daughter went to apply to the University of Chicago, prestigious school, very well known worldwide, one of the top academically rated schools. She appeared for an interview. All students who were applying for entrance to the school had to come in for an interview, or maybe it was optional, but she chose to go for it. And when she went for the interview, she thought, well, you know, this is in Chicago, business was her major. She went in a blue business suit. And when she was there waiting, the students before her went in t-shirt, raggedy jeans, and she thought, what's going on here? You know, seems a little strange for her to come into an interview like that, but she went in to the interview, and the first thing that she noticed was the interview people almost took offense at the way she was dressed and said, you know, what are you all dressed up for, like you're going to a business meeting or something? Is that a reflection of your thoughts? Or they really started laying into her about how she was dressed. And she thought, well, I thought I was dressed appropriate, but apparently she didn't make a good impression on these people. She then went to the University of Notre Dame and applied and had the same suit. She was not accepted by University of Chicago. She was very uncomfortable there. She was more welcomed and fitted in at the University of Notre Dame. Maybe a more conservative approach works at one place, less conservative. They looked at her as maybe restricted, not a free thinker with the blue traditional business suit on at the University of Chicago. So know your audience. What is their purpose? What are they looking for? Okay? If you're going for a job, what are people looking for if they're hiring you? They usually want somebody who's competent, somebody who's trustworthy, somebody who's hardworking. So when you come into that interview, you have to be looking sharp, you have to be looking competent, you look people in the eye, you answer questions directly. Even if you don't know exactly the answer to the question, you're giving off that cue that, hey, I'm with it. I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm not walking around stumbling, dropping stuff, bringing in my papers in kind of a hip, slipshod way. So you want to be really just kind of competent for employers, trustworthy, hardworking. For professors, it depends. Like I just said, you don't know what they're looking for. You've had professors that dress like this, they're in business suits, and you think, well, they're probably a little tight. They're probably a little like they want you to be on time. They want you to turn in the paper on time with everything looking just right. You have other professors who are just very relaxed about those rules, and they don't care what time you get there or when your paper gets turned in. So what's going to impress one person won't impress another person. You have to kind of figure out, what is this person all about? Your mindset of what's impressive isn't necessarily their mindset, okay? Besides knowing the audience, of course, you have to know yourself. What is it you have that could be impressive to people? Are you super sharp at something? Are you just, naturally gifted with communication and you can really wow them with your talk and your look? Okay? Or are you really good with the written word? So you want to put something more in writing than verbally? And maybe you would send a letter ahead of time before you're meeting with somebody, or with the professors, try and get as much written work in front of them as quick as possible to make a good impression quickly. Look at what your strengths are and what your values are. And then think about what it is you're going after. And think about how much you really want to get what it is you're going after. What would you be willing to give up? What would you not be willing to give up? I remember going on a job interview. I was 1 year out of law school. I went to a law firm that was pretty prestigious in Chicago, one of the boutique firms, you would call it. And I'd been out of school for 2 years, and this firm, it was like just to get an interview, everyone thought, whoa, you know, you're doing good. They were well known, handled a lot of big cases in Chicago. And when I went there, I was not impressed at all by the two partners who interviewed me. And I was young, I was 26, 27 years old, and they were in their 40s. And they were two of the younger partners, but the up-and-comers, movers, shakers. And they were talking about, and they gave me hypothetical situations. Would you do this? Would you do that? And I stumbled on a couple, and I said, I don't know that I would. Because, you know, isn't that like a violation of some of our ethical rules that we can't do that if the client didn't approve it? And they were looking at me kind of like I was green, saying, well, come on, you know, did you just get your law license? I mean, sometimes you have to do things, you know, get the job done. So I thought, well, you know, you got to play in the rules. And you're kind of in this interview thinking, are these guys really just testing me to see if I would be ethical? Or are they really saying they would do these things, in which case I'm not sure I want to work with them. I thought these were like the elite guys that really, you know, do things right and get, you know, get the big cases because they're well known and reputable and ethical. And so I was in the interview testing myself thinking, should I say yes to these things? And I was like, no, I really wouldn't do those things. So let's know how far you'd be willing to go. Interesting side note, the two guys that interviewed me, about a year later, I saw them on the front pages of the paper. They were getting indicted for some not so ethical practices. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at that, how close I came. So even though you're young and you're not sure, stick with your gut. You know what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And a lot of people do what they're going to do. Sometimes you have to walk away from an opportunity. Know what your purpose is, okay? You're going after a job, you talk about the job. You're talking to a professor because you want to learn more about the class, make a good impression as a student. Come to class, be on time, do the things that most professors would look at as positive, okay? So, you looked at your audience, you looked at yourself. Now you have to really ask the question as you get to know a little bit more about the audience and about yourself, am I a match? Is this going to work? And you shouldn't feel that, oh, I blew it or I made a bad impression. It's not necessarily meant to be all the time. That even when you're at your best and you think you made a good impression and the other person's not impressed, well, so what? You know, move on. I mean, that's not the end of the world. You might want to take a particular course. You go in, there's only one professor who takes that course, and you come in the first day or two and you say, this isn't going to work. I really don't like this professor's style. And, I'm trying to show I'm a good student, I'm doing all the work, turning it in on time, and 2-3 weeks go by and you just say, this just isn't working. I don't feel like I'm getting somewhere. Maybe you have different values. Maybe it's not a good fit and you should just maybe find somewhere else to take that class or wait for another professor to teach it next semester or so. One thing you have to keep in mind, you're always making impressions. Good or bad, you are making impressions. It's not just when you choose to make an impression that you're making an impression. You're making impressions anytime you're in public. Okay? I mean, you look just kind of sometimes in our area here at Cuesta, in the student lounge area. I've seen people sitting there barefoot with their feet up on the couch, kind of where if somebody were to lay their head down on the couch, somebody's head would be. And I've seen people sitting there doing their teeth, flossing their teeth in a public place. And I think, well, that's the kind of thing, you would do in the restroom. You want to floss your teeth, you had some lunch. People don't realize sometimes that they're in public. You know, you might take your shoes off, put your feet up on the couch at home, but you're not at home. And people don't realize sometimes that they're in public. You hear people out in restaurants getting crazy. They get in an argument with their spouse, and they kind of forget, you know, wait a minute. You know, you're in a public place. People are observing you. Okay, now, you might think, so what? I'm going to be myself, do what I want to do. But especially in a small community like we're at, might be later on, 3 months later, you're in a job interview, you're in a class, you say, oh, I remember that person. That's the person I saw making a scene in that restaurant, or, you know, getting all their personal hygiene matters taken care of in the classroom. You know, so you just have to know always you're making impressions, whether you choose to or not, just by the way you're conducting yourself in public. Okay. One of the most important things I think for making a good impression is be positive. Doesn't it feel good when you're around positive people? Isn't it kind of like, you know, the room energy changes, and then, you know, there's always people too. You walk into their house or you walk into a classroom and it's just kind of like down. You know, there's no energy. It's kind of like, oh boy, what happened today? Again, it's a negative. So you want to be positive. Okay? You want to be able to have a smile on your face like you both do now and say, okay, this is good. We're happy to be here. And if you're not happy to be in a certain spot and you can't maintain a positive attitude, you really should think about getting out of it. You know, because life's too short. And if you can't be positive about what you're doing most of the time, you know, you have a job, you go to work, you should be happy about going to work. Okay? If it's a job that most of the time you're not happy going to, you're not going to be positive, you're not going to do well at it, you're going to make a poor impression with your employer and your boss and manager. Same thing with a class. If you go in always with a sour look, instructors are looking and going, well, she really don't want to be here. Trying to work with her, but it makes things harder. So you always want to be positive. I like Zig Ziglar's quote, it's not your aptitude, but your attitude that determines your altitude. Zig Ziglar was a motivational, still is a motivational speaker. He's alive. Used to help salespeople stay positive, and I like that one in particular. If you say, well, you know, it's easy to say be positive, but what if I have this problem at home and this problem at work? How can I be positive? I have all these crazy things on my mind. You know, I have a teenage son that's acting up. I have this, you know, problem coworker at work. Well, everyone's going to have these problems. That's life. Okay? It's how you deal with those problems that allows you to be positive or to constantly be negative. Okay? Now, if you're the one always having things done to you, you feel like, wow, I have a headache today because my son stayed out till 2 in the morning last night. And he's supposed to be home at, 11, and he's not listening. Or my coworker puts the radio on when we know there's not supposed to be radio played, and I could hear it, and it's bothering me, distracting me. Well, in those situations, somebody else is causing you discomfort. They're being the cause of the negative effect on you. So what do? You need to take some action so that you are the cause and you're not having the negative effect dumped on you. Meaning you need to be proactive. You need to be assertive. You need to go out and address those problems in your life, work, home, wherever, and say, son, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be home at 11 o'clock, or this is going to happen to you. So there's less of the, I'll choose to do what I want, and the effect is that you have to stay up, Mom, till 2 in the morning to wait for him to come home if he chooses to stay out. I say, no, something's going to change. Here we go. Okay? You want to use the car or whatever else, you're not home by 11, you don't get to use it for a week. Or somehow you have to change it so that the other person has to live with your decision. Okay? Be more assertive, mainly. Okay? So don't let things go on and you're not able to enjoy life and have that positive attitude. You have to address those problems. Okay? I like that song, Johnny Mercer's song, kind of says it here. Accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, and don't mess with Mr. In Between. Okay? Where you just kind of always focus on the positive. Get rid of the negative. People are wishy-washy, go to the positive side of things. Okay? Making a good impression requires energy. Energy comes from passion. If you love what you're doing, you have something coming out of you that people can sense. When you walk into a room, you're not just going through the motions. You're not just like, oh, looking at the clock. And sometimes you have to take a step back and think about it a little. You're in a class, let's say, that you really don't want to be in, but you have to have that class to get your major, okay? Or you have to have another general elective that really, why do I need another science? I don't like science. I want to study business, whatever. You're in a class sometimes that you have to take, and you're not really passionate about it. So how do you generate some energy, some passion, some desire to be there? You think of what this class that you really don't care for is going to get you that you do care for. Okay? You start thinking about, well, it's going to get me a degree. I want a degree. And what's the degree going to get me? The degree's going to get me a better paying job than I have now. It's going to solve that problem in my life that I don't really like this job I have to go to. Okay? And when I get a better job, I'm going to get more money. I'm going to have more respect. And I'm going to be able to do something with that money. And all these good things start coming out of, well, wait a minute. This little sacrifice I'm making to be in this class, it's not a bad deal. This class starts turning into a good thing because it's getting you to much better things. So you just learn to start liking it, have a little energy, have a little passion. But I like Mel Brooks' idea here. Jump around, flap your wings a little, have some positive, feelings coming out of you that people can sense, and you feel good about life. And the only thing is, passion comes from the heart, comes from the soul. You just have a love for life, but you have to be careful because you're tapping into your emotions now, and you don't want to let your emotions get too far ahead of your reasoning. You start following your heart too much and getting excited and crazy. It gets too far ahead of your thinking, then you're not in a good spot. Okay, so remember, they have to work together. What does this mean to have a presence? What do you think this means, Lubova?
To be
right here, right now. To be right here, right now. When I get ready for something, I get ready 10, 20 minutes ahead of time, and I have to put everything else out of my mind. I came here an hour, hour and a half beforehand, set up the computer, make sure everything's working right, okay? Because if I didn't, and I kept doing emails, whatever I was thinking of, it was on my mind that, well, what if the computer doesn't work? And I get there at 10 to 2 before class starts, and now it's on my mind for an hour or two beforehand. So you come and take care of it an hour or two beforehand. Now it's off my mind. I can go meet with students like I did at 1:30 and know everything's set and ready. And I can come now into that meeting at 1:30 with some students for 15 minutes and say, you have all my attention. So there's nothing on my mind. When you're in a moment, just be there. You're having a conversation with somebody, look that person in the eye, whether it's a professor, an employer, a fellow classmate. You make impressions sometimes just by your attentiveness. You're there, you're in the moment, you're present fully. Not, oh, wait, my phone's going off, or I'm texting while I'm talking to you, or I'm looking at a piece of paper while you're talking, and then I'm looking at my watch. All those signs are saying, wait a minute, you're not really here with me. You're not hearing me. You're not talking to me. You got your mind somewhere else, okay? So you sense that when people are doing that, they're not making a good impression on you, right? They're making a good impression when they're right there 100% with you. So anytime you go into a situation where you need to talk to a professor, you need to talk to a potential employer, even when you're going to pick up the application to employ for a job, 100% attention is on that person you're talking to. Okay? So here I am. I'm here. What about how you dress? People think, well, making a good impression is really all about dressing nice, right? Not necessarily. Everything we've talked about now has nothing to do with really how you dress so much. I mean, it has to do with what's in you. You have some confidence, you have some passion, you pay attention when you're talking to people, but it does matter. And it matters such that you don't want it to be a barrier that people have to get over in order to accept you and engage you and get to your content. What is it you have to offer them? Okay, so you wouldn't want to be in a position where your dress is so outlandish that people are not able to get past it. They're kind of looking at you going, and again, this goes back to our first comments. You have to know your audience. So you don't know what might be really an obstacle to them. The example I gave you, the young lady who wore a nice professional blue suit, and when she interviewed at the University of Chicago, that was a barrier that they couldn't get over, the interviewers, because they looked at it and said, she's too rigid, she's too tight, she's too conservative, she's too closed-minded. We want free-thinking, open-minded intellectuals here. Okay, well, for that audience, the clothing she was wearing was a barrier. Okay, now you wouldn't think that normally, but it depends again, like we said, on the audience. Okay, so you have to kind of figure your audience out and then go with what you think is appropriate. I've gone into job interviews for a teaching position. I went into once where I figured, well, I'm going for a job interview. I was told I was going to be interviewed by the principal of a high school and 3 other full-time teachers. And I thought, well, what do you wear? I'm from a business background. I thought we're going into a teaching position for a business teaching position. Well, dressed like a business person, you know, I put a suit on and a tie. And I went in. There were 3 men and 1 lady. None of the men had a tie on. None of the men had a jacket on. 2 of the men had gym shoes and jeans on. It was during a work day, though, at a high school. They, you know, so you wear what you want. But even for the interview, they just figured, well, you know, we're interviewing you. And the first comments they had were, what's with the suit? I figured I'm showing respect, you know, coming in. But again, it was kind of like a barrier. They felt maybe I was too stiff for being able to relate to high school kids, but I wore a suit to interview. Not that I'd wear a suit every day, but I thought, I'm not going to meet the kids, I'm going to meet the adults, so I should. But it was a barrier. So you, again, you have to know your audience, kind of figure it out. What would they anticipate, or what would they want? Okay. I remember one person I worked for, he always looked sharp, he always looked comfortable. He said, just follow with dress, the 3 C's. Is it clean? Is it comfortable? Is it coordinated? You know, and then you'll fit in, usually. Okay? Just make sure your clothes are clean. I'm really a stickler about that. Myself, you know, I look, it's like one little spot. I wore a shirt one time, and it comes out of the dryer, and sometimes it yellows a little. There's like a little yellow spot. I said, where'd that come from? Well, maybe there was some grease on another shirt one of the kids had, and it got touched on there, and the shirt's ruined. You know, I said, I don't want to wear it. It's like even one little spot that's maybe going to be under the jacket. What if I take the jacket off? I don't want it. It's not clean. So that's just my style. You know, but I think being clean, comfortable, coordinate, that works. Graciousness. It never hurts to help somebody, to smile, to open a door for somebody, to say thank you, to say please. Especially in today's world where everyone's moving quickly and there's less, even not that people are intending to be rude, but there's less, it seems like, time for other people because everyone's overworked. You have things on your mind, you know, how many classes you're taking, plus you have children, plus you have a job, all these things in your mind. And you ever notice a door when the classroom opens? What happens? Like when the class is out, everyone opens the door and nobody puts a stopper down. You have 30 people walk out, nobody puts a stopper down. It's all kind of just, you're all on your own. Just push the door open or it's going to close in front of you. Nobody takes the time to just, you know, put the stopper down. We're all busy, we're all rushed. Not to say all those people are rude, but if you were to be the one who stopped and suddenly put the stopper down for everybody and let a couple people go out in front of you, wouldn't that stand out? You'd be the one making the impression that, hey, I'm considerate. I'm not in a rush, okay? So again, making good impressions sometimes just means having good manners and not being in the herd that is moving quickly and has to get to the next place, okay? Being kind, you know, a lot of times guys, you know, will look at this. I've heard, you know, I've had some male students talk about this. Be kind, be nice to people. Well, what are you, my grandpa? Say, what are you, like an old nice grandma you're trying to be? You're in business. You got to be ruthless, right? No, not necessarily. Right? And they say, well, if you're nice and you're kind, they're going to think you're weak. It's an old saying, only a fool mistakes kindness for weakness. Okay? You can be very kind, and when you have to lay the law down, you lay the law down. And if it's in a negotiation with a job, be really friendly, or with people in any situation, you can be kind and still be firm when you need to be firm. There's no conflict there that I see. And if people think, oh wait, I'm surprised now because you've always been so nice and kind, and now that I ask for something and I mean it, you'll see that there's another side to me. It's not unkind, but it is very affirmative, very assertive when need be. Sometimes people think, well, you can't be assertive and be kind. Sure you can. Okay? Have confidence. What stands out when you see people walk in? The kind of person that's talking to you like this, or they have a hat on and they really don't want to lift their head up to show you their eyes, or a person that stands up straight and looks at you and presents herself or himself and says, here I am. Takes a little bit of I can accept the vulnerability of putting myself out there, but you do, and people notice it right away. You stand out. Okay? So having confidence allows you to do that, where you come into a situation, whether it's a discussion with a professor or potential employer, and you stand out because you have confidence. Not cockiness, but confidence. And confidence comes from, it comes from a lot of sources. I think the best way to gain confidence is to get things done. Achieve your goals. However small they are, you achieve your goals, you get more confidence. You always wanted to learn a foreign language, you take a semester of Spanish or French or German or Italian or Russian or whatever you want, and you pass it. You might not be fluent, you surely won't be fluent, but you'll be a little more confident that you learned something new. Okay? So any time you take yourself on a challenge and you achieve what you set out to do, however small it is, you're building your confidence. Okay? People look for confidence in the wrong places, though. They think if I go out and spend $400 on a new suit or new clothes, I'm going to gain confidence. No, you're not. You gain a new suit or new clothes, but what's underneath the suit doesn't matter. Hasn't changed. Okay? So you have to build confidence from the inside, build it from within, build yourself up. That's what builds confidence. Now, you set yourself up for achieving, and then sometimes you don't achieve. Maybe you bit off too much or just didn't work out. One of the most confident people I know had this saying when he was very young. And it's a very calm, confident person now as an adult, but when he was a child, he said, I remember, well, what happens if you lose? You sure you want to do this? You're trying to protect a child's self-esteem, and they're looking like they're biting off more than they could chew. And another kid teased him. He'd say, so what, putt-putt? And it's kind of like, I don't know where he came up with the putt-putt. It's one of my children. He's, so what, putt-putt? Like, no big deal, And that is how you have to approach life. When you go out and you take challenges on, and one doesn't work out, move on. There's a lot more to do in life. You don't have to look at one loss as like, oh, this is the end of it, You didn't get an A in one class, you thought you should, move on. You didn't get 1 point on a quiz, you thought you should, move on. I mean, ask for an explanation, but don't let it ruin your confidence. Like, oh, now I'm not, the top student in the class, or I'm not going to get an A necessarily. Life isn't about getting all A's all the time. It's about gaining. Did you gain some knowledge? Move on. Keep going. Okay? Get the confidence that you did something well and move on. Okay? If you're going to get confidence and be confident, you're going to have passion, you have to focus on yourself. You have to do some work for yourself. Now, you look at, body, mind, and spirit, or body, mind, and soul. All three of them have to be addressed somewhat regularly if you're going to be strong, if you're going to be confident, if you're going to be making good impressions. Okay? So take care of your body. You know, I mean, there's like times when you're not feeling well. It's hard to be confident. It's hard to have passion if you have a flu bug or if you're sniffling or, you know, you've just been on a binge, you're eating too much, and it's kind of like, wait a minute, I got to lose 5 pounds, 7 pounds. You know, something's not right here. I'm just feeling sluggish. Okay, you take care of your body. You go out and exercise. How do you feel after you've exercised? Always you feel better. And you say, I got to do this more often, right? And we're busy. We don't find the time to do it. But when you do it, doesn't it help your confidence and you just feel better? You feel like you have more life and passion. So take care of your body. Take care of your mind. You're in school, so you're taking care of your mind. You're stretching your minds. Read for pleasure once in a while. Don't let the school year bog you down where it's all just, you know, oh, I got to do this because I have to take a test. Pick something up on the weekends or whenever you can once in a while that doesn't have anything to do with school. Go out there and treat yourself to a book that you sit next to your bedstand and maybe you only read it, you know, 2 nights a week for 15, 20 minutes, but it's something away from work and school. And it's just your pleasure reading. Okay? So you take care of your mind and then you take care of your spirit. Your spirit can be religious offerings that you'd like to go to and they fulfill you. It could be walks on the beach. It could be 10 minutes a day of wrestling with your dog, hugging your dog, and you know, whatever works for you, do it. Listen to music. Okay? You need to kind of pick yourself up, your soul every day, and shake off all of life's regular daily you know, burdens that come at you every day. And I had a little interaction with one student when kind of, you know, boss was kind of on one thing. You have to be able to, by the end of the day, be ready to go to bed and say, okay, all that stuff is, you know, cleared out. I'm ready to get a good night's sleep, and I've cleared off myself emotionally. Now I can relax for the evening with my family or wherever, and then go to sleep and wake up, start a new day that way. You can't carry those little things with you emotionally. They'll wear you down. So you got to clean your soul, clean your spirit daily, as best as possible. There'll be things that linger physically, emotionally, intellectually. There'll be things that linger. What do you do? I mean, if you have a problem on your mind or something that's just working your brain, I mean, you have a problem relationship with somebody you can't just walk away from, a child, a parent, a spouse, and it's just taxing your brain. How am I going to work this out? Or it's taxing your emotion. Then you use the other 1 or 2 and strengthen yourself physically. You know, like you're really stressed emotionally, you should do more physical work. That helps you carry the emotional burden. Okay? If you are sick, physically sick, okay, I mean, your body's down, do something to lift your spirits up. Your spirits get better, it'll help cure your body. You know, they say listen to really uplifting music when you're struggling and you're fighting a disease. Why? It releases endorphins. The emotions come out positive, and then it helps you physically. And physiologically, it's been shown very often. You listen to something that's uplifting, a good song, your brain releases chemicals that helps you feel better. And then if your body's feeling better with those chemicals, maybe the immune system gets lifted a little bit and helps you fight the physical problem. So they each help each other. You know, so you have to know when one's down, let the other one help pull me back up, okay? So find some time to take care of yourself. You know, people sit in front of the television, on average, they say in this country 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day. When I see those statistics, I really find it hard to believe that on average, American teenagers are sitting in front of a television 5 to 6 hours a day. I really find that hard to believe, but I guess there's a lot of people that are sitting in front of a television 8, 9 hours a day, and that offsets the people doing it 1 or 2 hours a day. And I've seen it sometimes with my own kids. It's like, you know, from 5 o'clock till 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, until you tell them, turn it off. I don't want to hear it. I mean, what are you getting out of that? You're not improving your intelligence, are you? I mean, maybe once in a while you watch something intellectual and you learn something, but most of the time, what do you watch TV for? A little light entertainment, maybe some sports shows that's entertaining, a specific soap opera you like, or a drama. It's supposed to be entertainment. That's what television's there for, right? or news. But, I mean, how much news do you get in a half-hour newscast? 18, 19 minutes, if that. I mean, the time you're spending there is not giving you the entertainment or the information you think you could be getting. So take care of yourself. Don't waste your time. Find new things to do, new places to go. That'll expand your emotional side. You'll be able to absorb more because you've seen more. You've spread yourself out. You've grown deeper roots. You've been to different states, different countries. You've met different people. Now you have more with which to absorb the world as it's coming at you because you've been to more places in the world. And you sensed and seen other people, how they live. And you look at how you live now and you say, it's not so bad. I've been to Alabama, Jamaica. People talk about, we went and looked at some of the places in Jamaica that were just, like people living in huts, and it's poor. Same exact thing you see in Alabama, in this country. And you think, well, wow, how good we have it. There's people, thousands of people living in little towns in rural America that have no floor. They're living on dirt floors. You think, is this a third world country or something? This is the United States. There's people living like that here. When you see that, you realize, wow, that's amazing. This isn't Zimbabwe or, some poor, nation. This is the United States, but people are living like that. Be unique. If you have some skill, whatever it is, music, art, athletics, you will make an impression on people. Okay? An athlete, very often, you can tell a person's an athlete. When the students walk into a room, you can sense it sometimes. Their physical stature, their physique, women and men. You can just see that attentiveness in them. Okay? Music, art, writing skills, reasoning skills. What is it that makes you a cut above everyone else, or most everyone else? You should be trying to develop one or two things that you do very well, better than most people. And that takes time and effort. It could be playing a musical instrument. It could be just your writing skills. It could be that you're just a well-traveled person, and when conversations strike up about, this or that, you've been there. Okay? And that will make impressions. That'll help you in life. So think about something you want to do and stick at it and do it to the point where you're really pretty proficient at it, way better than most. Okay? As an adult, it's harder to do that than it is when you're younger because other things come at you. Life comes at you, right? You say, well, I'd love to be able to, I want to take more foreign languages. At one time, I was fluent in French. And I would love to get back at it. And I would love to go study Italian and Spanish also, which I can understand a little bit because it's similar to French, Romance languages. And my mother spoke Italian and my grandmother, and when I was studying French, I could understand it, listen to them a little, but I don't really know it. And that's what I want to do. But the timing is such that at this part of my life where I have to work a lot to pay the bills for 4 kids, it's not going to fit in right now. But I could see myself, I studied business, I studied law. I'm pretty well above the average on those areas. Writing, reasoning, speaking, I can do all those really well because of my studies and business and law and practice in it. But now I want to go into something else and like have 4 languages that I'm fluent in. That would be my next goal. And that's kind of like, you have to have those going on in your life. What's next on your personal agenda that you want to do that gives you pleasure for yourself, and at the same time, it sets you apart. It's kind of like, wow, this person, you talk to everyone. Everyone has something, an interest that you want to take further, take it further. It doesn't have to be just school. Anything that interests you, it's not illegal or immoral, do it and get really good at it, okay? That'll help you make impressions, okay? All right. building good impressions, as we said, you have to have confidence. You have to have some exuberance, some passion, some desire for life. It's hard to do that on a regular basis if you have problematic relationships in your life. It's easier to do that if you have supportive, positive relationships. So it's not always just you that you have to concentrate on. You have to concentrate on improving those relationships you have with people. Okay? And we get into this mindset. I've been there, and you think, well, this is right, and I have to tell this person this is the right way to do it, and that's the wrong way, or we have a disagreement. And you really have to look at what are you going to gain by winning this little argument, and what's the cost to the long-term relationship. Okay? And it is, as you get older, you start realizing relationships are important. Even when you look back to when you're 15, 12, 10, you remember your best friends, like when you're a kid, and you say, that was a good relationship, right? Maybe it lasted 2 years, 5th and 6th grade, or 8th and 9th grade, or you had a good relationship, and it's a good memory, and it was positive for both involved. And as you get older, you have fewer and fewer of them just because we don't take the time to hold on to those relationships and build them. And it takes time and effort. And if you have those good relationships, you're more likely to be showing that in your daily interactions with everybody, whether it's going into a classroom, wherever you come home, and you say, wow, it's good to see you. Somebody gives you a hug, and it's a good relationship at home. That's much better than when you go home, it's another argument, it's another fight. Okay, well, then how's it that you're going to go out and make a good impression in the world tomorrow when you've had an aggravating, time at home or something? So you need to have friends, you need to have good relationships, but you need to work at it. And you can't always throw it at the other person. Well, it's because of her or him. You should first always look, when you have a problem, at yourself and say, what can I do differently? And I do that 2, 3, 4 times before I look for the other person to do anything. Sometimes if I make an adjustment, it's good enough, and the relationship gets better. If you can't fix a relationship, whether it be with a professor, with a coworker, whether it's a manager at work, or somebody closer in a personal relationship that's wearing you down, you have to realize at some point, well, not all relationships are meant to go for years. Sometimes, it's just, this is the extent of this relationship. This is all it's going to go. Don't try and pull more out of a relationship than it's meant to be. Okay? It's like nature. It's like some trees grow 40 feet tall, some grow 20 feet tall, some grow 4 feet tall. How far is this relationship going to grow? When you've done what you can do with it, it's time to let it go, move it on. Okay? Main thing is, when you're trying to build relationships, I'm not a marriage counselor or family counselor. I'm a legal counselor, and I've been in a lot of relationships, and I've represented people who are having troubled relationships. The number one thing for curing a relationship, I think, is communication. And people will say, well, we are communicating, are you? Sit down, face to face, and just talk and say, I don't like this. Or here's what I do like. I wish you would do that and not do this. And really just lay it out there. Communicate frequently, communicate directly, communicate honestly. And that'll usually help most relationships. Or it'll let you know, I tried, and this relationship isn't going to go any further because we're in different camps. We have different values. Okay? So, it's just not going to work. Okay? You get a professor who, my son told me, he said, I'm in a class, one of my sons, I have 4 sons. He said, I'm in a class, the professor didn't turn the quiz back. He says, we had the quiz 3 weeks ago. We've had 5 classes since. Every time we come to class, the professor says, I'll get it to you next class, I'll get it to you next class, I'll get it to you next class. He says, it's been 4 weeks now. He says, we've already had another quiz. We never got back the prior quiz. And it's cumulative learning. He said, we're getting quizzed on stuff we didn't get it back. We don't know if we got it right, wrong. He said, so I went and talked to the professor, and I said, I'd really like to get my quiz back before I have to take the next quiz. It's just helpful to know what I got right, what I got wrong. The professor says, it really shouldn't matter to you. You'll get your grade at the end of the semester. Well, when you try and communicate and you see you're really on different pages way far away, sometimes that's just realizing, okay, like we said at the beginning, not everybody's meant to have the same mindset. And you're not going to make a good impression with that person if you keep persistent saying, well, I think this. Obviously, you're in a different thought camp here. And let them go where they're going to go with it. And sometimes it's then saying, well, let's end this one, drop this class. We don't have the same mindset here, obviously. So I'll move on to somebody else. Okay, let's try and wrap it up here. How do students impress? Well, go back to our first slide. Depends on the audience, right? You're trying to impress a professor? Depends on the professor, okay? I think most professors would appreciate, not all, but most would appreciate students who are engaged, okay? Students who come to class regularly, students who ask questions occasionally, students who are taking notes. I look through the class when I'm teaching a class, and I see some students who don't even open a notebook. They're just sitting there the whole time, like, I'll listen, I'm here, but I'm not going to do any work. Okay? So I think, well, they're not really engaged. They're not making a good impression on me, and I would think on most instructors, because it's like saying, I'm here, but I'm not really all the way here, so we're not really going to try and meet you halfway even. But be engaged, ask questions, do your work, study. Okay? Nothing impresses like students who study and put out good work. Okay? And be consistent. It's great to be an A student for first 6 weeks of the semester, first 10 weeks, but then if you disappear for 2 weeks, kind of shatters that impression you've made, that image you made for yourself. So you have to be consistent, okay? And I've seen students who start out getting C's, and they just keep hanging in there, and they do extra credit, and they come to every class, and then they start getting B's, and maybe they never get an A on a test, but they do every assignment as best they can. They do every extra credit. They never miss points for not being there. By the end of the semester, they're getting an A. And the high flyer who earned an A in the first quiz, earned an A in the midterm, earned an A here, and then last 4 weeks of the semester starts flaking out, and they wind up getting a B. And they say, what happened? I got an A all semester. Well, look, you didn't do the last homework assignment. You got 0 out of 20. You missed the last quiz because you missed a couple days there. And your final exam was a lot less than what it was in the midterm. So you tailed off. Be consistent, okay? Help other students. Professors see that. You're in essence helping this professor then, okay? You never notice like the end of a class, a lot of times 5, 6 students will rush the professor saying, I didn't understand this. Can you explain this a little more? Well, if you're hearing that and you know it, talk to the student, okay? That's just being helpful. That's good to do, okay? I think it really helps too, it shows you're engaged, to not sit in the very back with your feet facing the door, okay? I see students that are, by their body language, telling me they want out of here. They sit by the back, literally side saddle facing the door. It's really saying like, if you can't hold on to me, I just might run out of there right now. I'm like, run out, do what you want to do. But that's showing me you're not really here. You're not present. So you're not making a positive impression, okay? And again, you're in a relationship with your classmates. You're in a relationship with the professor. Communicate. You don't understand something? Ask the professor. Professor should be glad that you're asking questions, okay? And go to office hours. Introduce yourself at every opportunity you get. Every class you have, you should go in the first week or two. Maybe not the first week, everything's busy, but like the second week of the semester, go in during office hours, just introduce yourself. Say, hi, I'm, Brianna, I'm in your class. Just thought I'd stop by and say hello, get to know you a little bit. I think most professors should be impressed by that. It's showing initiative, trying to establish a relationship, a working relationship, so kind of shows independence too. You're jumping out from the crowd and you have some skills at communicating. Final tips. You want to make good impressions? Well, a lot of times your reputation precedes you, okay? So you can be doing all these things we talked about, but if people have heard, oh, she cheated on a test once, or He faked his time card once at work and tried to get a couple extra hours out of us. Your reputation is important, very important. Professionally, personally, you have to protect it. What does that mean, protect your reputation? It means don't ever do anything stupid that you'd be embarrassed about. Okay? It's not worth it in the long run. You have a long life to live. You always want to have the ability to say, put the light on me. Now, sure, when you're young, everyone's done something stupid. Well, most everyone. I did, my fair share. But after a certain point, you're 17, 18, 19, yeah, you do dumb things. 20, 21, it's kind of like, well, you better start getting out of that. 22, 23, 24, hey, time's up. Get it right or, you're going to be paying for the rest of your life. So you have to be thinking, this move that I'm doing now, will I regret it 6 years from now, 6 months from now? You can't be thinking like a teenager. Teenagers, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, their brain's not fully developed. They can't see long term. They're not thinking reputation. They're thinking satisfaction today, right? Number one song, Satisfaction, right? Rolling Stones. Who's it appeal to? Well, when everyone's young, vibrant, I still like it, but still, Satisfaction today, that's for teenagers. You have to be think long term, protect your reputation, okay? How do you build a reputation with people you don't know? You get a new job or you're in a new class or professor. Consistency, consistency. You show up to work 10 minutes early, you stay 10 minutes late, you do everything that's asked as best as possible. That will stand out because there's very few people who can consistently perform at an acceptable level. We all get tired, we flake out, we forget to go to work one day, we forget to turn in an assignment. It happens, it's human. But the one who stays on top of their game and it doesn't happen to, that's what makes an impression. That's where you go, wow, this person is never late, never missed a class. It's like, even if you're quiet, I notice some students, they're always there. Just being there all the time is like developing with me an impression that, wow, this person's interested, this person's working hard, this person's showing up. And everyone has to deal with traffic, everyone has to deal with flat tires and crying kids and whatever, but somehow this person, despite all those life chores, gets here every day. So you notice those things. And if you're trying to make good impressions at work or at school, just being there will make a good impression. Consistently being there, okay? Be careful with food and alcohol and such. You can sometimes make bad impressions. I'll give you a quick story. I was working at a law firm in San Diego County, my first job out of law school. And the owner of the firm was 3 lawyers, myself and 2 owners of the firm. And I was working there full time. They gave me a big job to work on for a client, big client. I had to prepare an analysis of a lot of boxes of documents and summarize it, got it all done, put it in a binder. Took me about 3-4 weeks to do it. Boss looked it over and said, excellent, good job. Client's gonna come in tomorrow, I want you in on the meeting. Even though I briefed him in a 10-page memo, everything, I want you in the meeting. Okay, first job I was going, put on my better suit for tomorrow, look good. And so it looked good, had a 2-hour meeting in the boss's office, and I just was answering questions as the client had questions and knew it all, clicking, doing well, thought, good, okay. Now, that day, we had this meeting at 3 o'clock or 3:30 in the afternoon. That day, I didn't eat any lunch because I was so worried about this meeting. I kept looking over my notes and make sure I had everything accounted for and all the documents in place. And so I went to that meeting, came out fine. We came out of the meeting. We're walking from the boss's office to the front of the law office. We're walking the guy out. The secretaries had left for the day already. It was getting close to 6 o'clock or so. And we're standing right where the secretary's desk is at the front, and there's a little lobby waiting area, and there's a riser on the secretary's desk, and she would always have snacks there for us. Anybody in the firm would go and grab, and there was a bag of pretzels, and there would be a bag of jelly beans, whatever you want, snack food, and anyone could just go get it any time. Well, I'm standing there, and the boss and the client start talking about baseball, I think it was. And they're just talking small talk, this and that, and it's 5 minutes of that, 10 minutes of that, yeah, and I'm just kind of hanging there going, yeah. I'm thinking, well, the meeting's over, right? you know. So I grabbed a bag of pretzels. I'm starving. I didn't eat any lunch. I grabbed a bag of pretzels. You grab a bag of pretzels, crunch, 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 the noise. I just grabbed it, and the noise stopped both of them in their tracks for just a second, and they're like, were distracted by the noise. And my boss shot me a look that could have, killed. I was like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. But I couldn't figure out why. I was like, what's going on? I didn't even think, well, maybe I shouldn't be grabbing the pretzels now. We're still in a business meeting. I grabbed the pretzels, and I thought he looked at me funny, and I thought, I had my hand in it already. I'm like, well, maybe because I didn't offer them one. So I just held the bag out to the client, said, care for a pretzel? My boss was like, oh my gosh. He was like, I ate a pretzel then. I was like, no, munch. I was like, he's looking at me like, I better put these down. So I put the pretzels down, and the client said, all right, goodbye, chewing, saying goodbye. And boss looked at me and he said, what's wrong with you? What happened? I said, what do you mean? He said, what are you eating pretzels for in the meeting? I said, I thought the meeting was over. I mean, it's just pretzels, what? He says, you're a lawyer. You're trying to make an impression on a good client. You did great for 2 hours. Then you blew it. I said, what, lawyers don't eat pretzels? I mean, what's the problem here? He says, you're trying to make a good impression. Be consistent all the way through. You could have waited 2 more minutes and eat all the pretzels you want. You're talking, and your mouth's got pretzels in it, the noise. And he says, just blew the whole scene there, Okay, well, food got me in trouble there. Just a little. You have to watch, Alcohol can get people in trouble. You have one too many, start getting a little, loose, and people look at you a little differently. So just be careful. Be yourself, but be careful. What does it mean to be on tilt? All of you who play poker know what it means to be on tilt, right? It usually means that your emotions have taken over, and you're not using your brain. Your reasoning has been captured by your emotions. Okay? You ever get angry? You just act? We've all been there probably, right? And you think then, maybe I shouldn't have done this or shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said that, or you send off an email quickly. Okay? You have to keep your cool. You have to keep your calm. Okay? And that all goes back to, are you taking care of your body, your mind, and your emotion? If your body's tired, you're more likely to snap, right? If you're emotionally kind of spent because you had trouble in a relationship, you have less patience for other people. You're less likely to make good impressions. You're more likely to have troublesome interventions. So be careful with that. Don't tilt. Make friends, work hard. But the last thing really I want to stress, you want to make good impressions, you have to be having fun in life. If you're not having fun, you're not making good impressions. Okay? What about work? People say, find a work you love, and won't be work then, right? Well, we can't always do that. You have to pay bills. And here's a job that pays the bills, and it's not exactly what you love to do. You'd rather be a painter or artist, but this one pays the bills. Okay? Well, sometimes you have to work to pay the bills. Now, if you're in a job or you're in a class where you say, you know what, this is really getting to me, where, it's okay, you come to work, 7, 8 out of 10 days should be good days. If 1 or 2 days are bad, that's life. That's why it's work. It's kind of like you got to deal with it and move on. But if you're getting to the point where you can't have fun at least 70% of the time in a class or in a job, why are you there? It's time to rethink why you're there. You really need to think about moving on. Because remember, making impressions means you're whole. You're feeling good about where you're at in life. You have some confidence. You have some energy. And you have to be having fun on a regular basis in what you do every day. You can't be wishing away your life thinking, well, 15 years from now I'll retire and I'll have a good pension, so I'll stay in this job I hate. No. You won't be making it 15 years because you're going to be getting more negative vibes around you, and you're going to blow the job somehow. So look at your position in life, whether it be as a student, as an employee, as an owner of a business, and say, am I really having fun doing this? And if you are, you continue on. If you're not, start monitoring it for a couple months, 6 months, a year, and say, hey, this has to change. And then make some changes. Okay? Questions? Comments? Okay? You're welcome. Have fun. We're done.